Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Christ Made. Oh man, we are so excited for all of you that are tuning in for the first time and all of you that are tuning back in. I could not be more excited about all of you joining on for this really, really powerful conversation that we're going to have today. Go ahead and take a moment if you're here to share this stream. Hey, Tiffany, what's going on? Go ahead and share the stream with any creatives, any Christian-owned businesses, any entrepreneurs, anything in that vein, or just if you want to just share it with your timeline or people that you think may be interested in this conversation and want to be a part. Let's go ahead and take a moment and do that now. It's going to be a completely amazing time. I have one of my friends on, Lauren White, and I'll bring her out in a second, but I wanted to say thank you to everyone who has watched and tuned into the previous stream. And we are going to continue just dropping some knowledge and just having some great conversations about Christ Made and everything involved in it and all of these beautiful subject matters. So please stay tuned for more conversation and more digging in and stretching ourselves in these areas, okay? Wait a couple more seconds for you can go ahead and get to know and get yourself comfortable, get yourself a pen and paper, because we believe these things are about stretching ourselves creatively, not just about sitting and listening, even though that's good. You want to make sure you're taking some notes if you can, or go back and watch the stream and take some notes later so that you can enjoy and have a good time. So my friend Lauren is here. Lauren is really, really great person. Most of the bio about her is in the subject matter of this timeline. She's a strategic architect and purpose advocate and the owner of Subdue28 Branding Firm. And she has spent the last 9 years developing strategy for high profile churches, ministries, and missional organizations all over the country. In addition, she's developed a digital community and a lifestyle brand called Born to Subdue, designed to help bringing those same strategies to everyday multi-hyphenate leaders. She's also a fourth-generation minister, and she serves on the pastoral team of one of my favorite guy. So you guys, I really want you to give it up, put your hands together and be excited. Go put something in the comments, put some hearts, leave some comments from Miss Lauren White. Woo!
Hello, hello.
I am so
Hello.
excited.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday, happy after Mother's Day. When you said Mon, as you started the MO of Mon, I thought Mother's Day. I thought you were about to say Happy Mother's Day. I was about to say let's go with that.
Knowing
Let's
me,
keep
that's
up with
something
the
I
Happy
would have
Mother's Day.
done.
Yeah, it's so good to see you. You guys, I talked about Lauren a little bit last week, and of course, I just went over her bio. But Lauren is just becoming a true, just ride, just connection, just God. You know, when somebody drops a God connection in your life, and you're just like, you knew something about this person was special, and then they get connected to you, and you're like, okay, yeah, God, this is what this is about. Okay, that's fine. And so that's what Lauren has been. She's also running a 21-day fast right now. Lauren, can people still get not fast? Is it a fast?
It's not a
I
fast.
said fast. Now I knew that was wrong. But she's running a 21-day that I am a part of, a devotional. That's the word I was looking for. A
Uh-huh.
21-day devotional that I'm a part of that I'm sure she'll get to later. But Lauren, just introduce yourself to the people and
Absolutely,
just this is your
absolutely. Well,
moment.
you shared all my good facts. Uh, but I'm so excited to be with you guys. So passionate about ministry, about the creative space, about working in excellence. It's something that as a PK I've done since knee high.
Yeah.
So I'm
PKs.
really
Shout out.
yes, PK's rock. So really excited about this conversation, excited about this space that you've created. I think it's so valuable and important. And I believe that the creatives we've got a very special assignment and
Yeah.
mantle in this season. As our normals are shifting and changing, I believe we're really on the forefront and the precipice of just amazing change and innovation.
Right.
So having this space for us to grow, to connect, not just practically but spiritually, I think is absolutely phenomenal. So thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
No, thank you so much. As most people know, when I launched this CHRISTMADE platform, I was excited about just talking about a lot of tough subjects. But Lauren was one of the first people that came to my brain because I believe she is someone I've watched from afar that has served well. In
Thank
whatever
you.
capacity that she is serving in. You just get around those people and you're in spaces with people and you can watch people serve. And when you see them, you can see their heart and you can see their heart for people and their heart to grow the world and change lives. And I see all that in Lauren. And I think that's like a
Thank you.
perfect segue into us just jumping right into our topic, because
Mhm,
that was one of the reasons why asked Lauren to come on for this specific topic, because in a way, we talk about serving often. Business owners, CEOs,
mhm,
Christians, we love the word serve. We love it's a great word. It's
mhm.
a biblical word.
Oh,
It is the word that we all identify with. It's the positive. It's the yes. We're going to serve. I serve people. I serve the world. I serve my vision. All of that is
mhm,
great. But I wanted to get a bit more specific because the word we don't really deal with that comes underneath serving
mhm.
is this word obedience.
Yes.
Woo! I mean, I posted something earlier today just to kind of, we post things to kind of excite people into joining on to what we're doing. And I
Mhm,
posted the words obey me.
mhm,
And I knew that posting the words obey me would draw people's attention to what was going on,
mhm.
because we at this generation, the younger generation, people in general, obey me is a tough statement.
It's hard. It's real hard.
Woo! We can't stand obey me.
Mhm,
We we can't really get with that because something
mhm.
about it reads as you're trying to control me. Something
Yeah.
about it, like literally when somebody obey, if your boss was to walk up to you and say obey me, some of these
Mhm.
people on here, Christian or not, would cuss somebody out.
Yeah,
If
absolutely,
if
without
if if
question.
if, if a teacher, leader, anybody walked up and just said it straight like that, obey
Mhm.
me, we would be
Like, wait a minute.
to dig into this word because I think that this word is a biblical word that we as Christians should not shy away from.
For sure.
I'm a big person that deals with definition. So I want to
Okay.
start this out by reading definition because I learned this from my pastor. He says it all the time. What you cannot define, you cannot fulfill.
Mhm.
So we cannot fulfill a thing that we don't know the definition of. So most of these Christ-made sessions, if they start with a subject matter, I'm going to begin it with a definition because I think it's important to know that before we move forward.
Mhm.
Obedience, by definition, is compliance with
Okay.
an order, request, or law, or submission to another's authority. Again, compliance with an order, request, or law, or submission to another's authority. So this is not a question I gave you originally, but I'm going to jump right out there with this and say,
Okay.
when I read this to you, obedience, compliance with an order, request, or law, or submission to another's authority, what is the thoughts that come to your head immediately?
Um, Immediately, and maybe it's because of the space I'm in,
Okay.
immediately the word safety comes to me.
Ah,
Immediately the word safety comes to me. I think um in other spaces or phases of my life, hearing that, I would be like, I don't want to comply. That does not sound like something that interests me. But right now, that sounds like safety.
yeah, that's
Um,
so good.
and I think that, and I don't want to jump ahead,
No,
but
no, you're
you
fine.
can
Go
stop
ahead.
me if you need to.
No, go, flow.
Um,
We flow.
but I think that that is something, a perspective that really kind of needs to be had when it comes to obedience, because we hear that word and oftentimes it immediately triggers in us, I think just as humans, it triggers this like need to rebel, even if what we're being asked to do is good. It's just like a natural trigger. But I think of the word I think of the word safety. And I feel as though in the right context, a lot of times, obedience, whoever is asking you to obey, often has insight to things that we don't have at the
Yeah.
moment. And so this idea of being compliant, like when you think about like public works, right?
Hmm.
Or you think about like building codes or
Yeah.
things like that, right?
Yeah.
There's always these things you have to be compliant to,
Yeah.
right? And it's not to restrict you or to keep you from living out the fulfillment of whatever it is that you're trying to do. It's
Hmm.
literally because if you're not compliant to these specific codes or whatever is being asked of you, then you have the potential to put yourself and other people in danger. And then whatever it is that you were originally setting out to do, you won't be able to do because you've cut something short.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think of safety, and um, I think that we have, especially in the church space, because there is also a history of people just dealing with abuse as it relates to leadership and different things like
Hmm.
that. Immediately we take things that God said as good things and
Yeah.
we turn them into negative things or place them with a negative connotation when it
Yeah.
never was supposed to be that way.
Yeah. I agree with you because I think when I hear that word, I think I for a long time in my life, obedience felt like suppression. It
Hmm.
felt like that
Hmm.
meant there would, and in a way, it can be suppression
Hmm.
because in a way, there could be something that's just not meant for this time. It could be
Uh-huh.
something just not meant for this season. But I
Mhm,
think sometimes we don't understand. When I hear obedience, I almost hear who's driving the ship. I have a
mhm,
lot of people.
mhm,
I have a lot of people that come to me and they'll say, hey, my pastor or my leader or some sort of situation wants me to do this, and I don't like this. I'm not happy with this. They're wrong. They're
mhm,
incorrect. They're bad. They're not being helpful, and it becomes an extremely accusatory because
mhm,
someone asked you to do what they said do, and
mhm,
that's it. And
mhm.
I think I always have to turn back and go, okay, you're serving somewhere, you're working somewhere. Who's driving the ship?
Yeah. Yep.
So they what looking beyond now, looking beyond what you see in front of you.
Mhm,
Because I think sometimes we get so fixated on what we want to produce right now that we forget that the person driving the ship has a long-term plan that may or may not involve you at the end of the
mhm,
day. That's what confuses people sometimes. We get so focused on this right
mhm.
now without realizing that the person that's driving the vision, the boss, the CEO, the pastor, the leader, that person has to think a long-term strategy that you may or may not be a part of.
Yeah.
You you have the right to jump ship.
Mhm,
You have the right to try to do something differently.
mhm,
But they don't because this is something that they're producing and this is something that they're serving.
mhm.
I even kind of equate that up to the God level. God is the one that sees the end before the beginning.
Exactly. Yep.
He sees so much further than we do. So if
Mhm,
he's asking me to obey him right now, and
mhm,
there's something that he doesn't agree with me doing right now,
mhm.
then there's a level of trust that has there's a level of trust that has to come in that goes beyond what I see right now in this moment.
Exactly.
Because we
Exactly.
love to focus on what we see right now in this moment
Mhm.
and
Exactly.
what we feel right now in this moment and what we're pushing right now in this moment and what our agenda is right now in this moment. And so I segue that into this next kind of thought process, which is okay, cool. So you have obedience, you're thinking about obedience. And a lot of the times we have people who love to preach a thing, but we don't often talk
Mhm,
about the living out of a thing. So
mhm.
I want to know of a time that someone asked you to obey them in a way that made you extremely uncomfortable and what the end result of that was.
So when you ask this question, I think my original thought was like, did this example have to be of a person, or could it be God directly? And I think I have an example that kind of mixes the two. But sorry, things are making noise.
It's okay.
But my example would be, and I think a couple people have heard me tell this story. It's something I don't tell it super often, but something that a few people have heard before. I think the most significant act of obedience that I have been asked to do was when God opened up an opportunity for me to be at TLC.
Okay.
What people don't know, so a lot of people saw that transition and was just like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So it was me being offered to be the creative pastor at the Life Church, and everybody was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, this is so
Hmm.
exciting, like, Lauren, you're perfect for this role, you guys are going to be such a good fit. A lot of people do not know I did not want to leave my church. I did not want to leave
Really?
my home church. I absolutely did not want to leave. And this is a story I've told before. Vernon knows about it. They walked me through it.
Really?
I did not want to leave.
I did. I wouldn't have guessed it.
No,
Okay.
nobody knew. I did not want to leave my home church. I was so I was just so satisfied. One is the church I grew up in. Right. So my granddad's church, my dad pastors there as well. Ministry is like our family business, right? So I'm fourth generation on my dad's side. I'm sixth generation on my mom's side. And my mom's side is the church that I grew up in. Not only that, but we're a part of an affiliation of churches. So I grew up as an apostolic kid, and my granddad is over our affiliation. So I had roles in our home church, and I had national roles as well over our organization of churches. Um, and I loved my church. I loved my church. My granddad, to this day, I will put him up against any faith teacher, preacher. Like, he's an OG. He's an OG.
Hmm.
And I was being spiritually fed. Of course, there were some spaces in ministry that I wanted to I guess be pushed more into. Now granted, I think what also is maybe different from me than other PKs or people growing up in ministry. My granddad and I are very close, and anything I wanted to do I could do. Like from the time I was younger. If I wanted to put on a conference, if I wanted to put on a revival, if I wanted to teach Bible study, if I wanted to start, like, whatever I wanted to do, I had the freedom to do it. And so it was a place where I could grow. It was a place that really pushed my gifts, especially as a woman in ministry. We didn't have like men do this and women do this. And so it was a beautiful foundation, and I was totally fine with it.
Hmm.
Um, and the summer that I got a call from Vernon, now mind you, I had developed the brand for TLC.
Hmm.
So we did brand development, brand strategy, all of that. But it was nothing more than Brandon and Ashley were my friends, and TLC was a client, and that
Right,
was
right, right.
that was it. And so I got a call from Vernon June 2016. And the thing about Vernon is he's on a lot of different platforms and stages and
Did
different
I
things.
know it was June 2016? Oh,
It
that's
was
so
June
strange.
2016.
Okay, keep going. Keep going.
Real okay.
Yes.
We have all these
Yeah,
little
this is a thing that I didn't. This is another thing, but no, keep going.
okay. So I got a call from him June 2016. It was a total normal day. The thing about Vernon is he's in a lot of like spaces and a lot of major platforms, right? So he's always calling me with news, like always calling me with news, like I'm getting ready to do such and such. So it's never a big deal. So he calls me the middle of the day, and he's just like, I've got something to talk to you about. Are you sitting down? And I'm like, what? The Obamas invited you to the White House? What you
What is
got?
it?
And he's like, Ashley and I have been praying. And we want to offer you a position as the creative pastor at our church. And immediately, from how heavy my heart sank, I knew God was telling me yes immediately.
Wow. Now
Like,
I want to stop there
uh-huh,
because a lot of times when opportunity comes like this, which can
uh-huh.
seem great to a lot of different people, people could read obedience as this overwhelming feeling of just, yes, this is it.
I
Or
was
or
so
like or
sad.
so the fact that you or like yeah, we so often talk about the big moves in a way that's like, yes,
Hmm.
God told me to leave my job, so I quit my job and I'm out. But this is different. You said you
Yeah,
knew it was God by the pit of the way your stomach almost wanted to scream no.
yeah.
It by your visceral reaction to almost
Hmm.
not wanting to do it.
Hmm.
Now that's crazy.
Like, yeah, like I knew by how quickly my heart sank, it was a yes. And what was so amazing is, things are always backed up by confirmation, right?
Yeah.
And so, as he's telling me this, he was just like, I don't just see this as an opportunity for you to bring these things to our church. Like, I think that for where we're going, we need you. However, what I see is us being able to provide this for you. And what he outlined was a vision that God had gave me maybe days before or a week before,
Wow.
of where he was taking me in ministry. And I did not tell anyone. Like, I told no one. And even down to like what I would need from a church in order to fulfill it. And
So
it was huge.
I want to jump in here really quickly and just because I really feel like this could be a God moment for some people watching, just dealing with this portion right here, that
Hmm.
the life that you want in God can be on the other side of that stomach pit feeling that says, I don't want to do this, I don't want to obey.
Period.
That is a serious thing because
Hmm.
I think people spend a lot of time contending with that feeling and will often misconstrue that feeling to mean I'm not supposed to do it or I'm not supposed to go. It makes me think biblically about Jonah. It
Yeah.
makes me think of he was commanded to go to this place.
Hmm.
The feeling that he felt of I am not meant to do this
Hmm.
caused him to go a different direction, and
Hmm.
he I can't do this. On the side of me getting past this feeling of I don't want to do this.
Hmm.
And I think that could be applied in serving so many people as well, because people don't understand that when you're serving or you're working for someone or you're working in a thing, that trust from your leader to you, trust from God to you is developed through you being willing to push past what you don't want to do.
That
It's
part.
not developed in those moments of your excitement and creativity. People think that trust in a leader is developed in, oh, I created a good idea, you should trust me because it's a good idea, or
No.
I created a good product, you should trust me because it's a good product. When people don't realize, trust with the people that you're serving is built through obedience. It's built through you being willing to understand
Period.
that I'm the one or they're the one driving this ship, and they're watching for what your
Hmm.
reaction is going to be to what you do. They're watching for what
Yeah.
your reaction is going to be in the uncomfortable moments. The light moments are easy. The creative
Hmm.
moments are easy. Producing
Hmm.
stuff is easy. It's the obedience that tells you where the character is.
It is.
So I just wanted to jump in there and say that, but please.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And he was able to confirm it right away. This vision that God had given me, he literally said it back to me almost word for word.
Wow.
And I was just like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, no.
Yeah.
And I remember getting off the phone with, even though I knew right away, I didn't tell him my answer right away.
Yeah.
I remember getting off the phone with him, and I asked a friend of mine, because I could not, because of how tight our family is, right? And just, you know, the fact that like this is what we like, this was our legacy.
Right, right, right.
So I couldn't like get off the phone and call my mom or call my dad,
Right.
or call a family member. And so I had got off the phone. I called one of my close friends at the time, and I was just like, and she's not surprised, which blew me. But she was like,
ooh. I gotta jump in there. That's why you have to have the right friends around you, you
yep.
guys, and you have to know who to call. Because a
Mhm.
lot of us, when we don't want to do something that our leaders or people have asked us to do, or God wants to do, we look for sounding boards to confirm why we should not do what we were
Yeah.
told to do.
And that's
We
what I
are
was calling her for.
we love to look for a sounding board. We love to look for someone. We love to look and find someone who will talk you out of the will of God.
Hmm.
We have those type of people around us who are literally, and you don't know their reasoning, whether it be jealousy or envy or downright they're not in the right mindset to
Hmm.
understand why God called you to this. But you're looking for them to confirm you not doing something that God told you to do.
Exactly.
And that's why I'm so happy. I don't know who that friend is, but thank God that you called someone who had enough God on the inside of them
Hmm.
to challenge you in that friendship. That's having the
Immediately.
right circle. That's having the right circle.
Immediately. And the thing she tells me is, I tell her, you know, well, I'm being, you know, I feel like I'm being spiritually fed, and spiritually fed well. Like, I don't really know where I could get better. I mean, he lays out stakes, you know, and she was just like, sometimes your spiritual growth and being spiritually fed has more to do with what you're able to give than what you're able to receive.
Yeah, please say it again. Please say it one more time.
She says sometimes your spiritual growth is more about what you're able to give than what you're able to receive.
Yep.
And it blew me away. And I immediately understood that this move had nothing to do with me. Like God was going to bless me because of it, sure. Or was he going to allow this vision that Brennan and I had talked about to come to pass? Sure.
Yeah.
But it wasn't about me. Clearly it meant that there was something that God was pulling out of me, that needed to reach a space that I wasn't able to in
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
moment. And
Yeah.
then I get off the phone with her. I just pull up YouTube and literally just clicked on a random sermon, like super random. I don't even think I looked at the title. Um, and the person that's preaching is preaching about what happens when God asks you to leave your father's house.
Yeah. Won't he do it? Won't he?
And
Won't he slide a sermon in there or a sign in there that will play your whole life?
dog, I was just like, you gotta be kidding me. And I
Yeah.
literally, what's so crazy, Derek, is I literally, even after that, right? I literally wrestled with the struggle of, and this is where I feel like true obedience comes into place, right? Because there's
Yeah.
one thing to say, like, okay, I'm gonna do it, but I struggle with the validity and I think even the joy behind my yes
Yeah. Yeah.
for
Yeah. Dig in
months.
there.
I was
Yeah.
not okay until we had that conversation in June. I wasn't okay until December.
Yeah.
Um, and it still took me my first couple of months to like get it together. Matter of fact, I would say my first 6 months in my role in that space was heavily effective, and I think for me in a very negative way, because I still could not adjust to the fact
Mm-hmm.
that God had placed me somewhere that I was not comfortable being. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I am so grateful that I said yes, but I struggle. Oh my gosh, I struggled with that yes. It took a while for my family to jump on board and be okay. They were just kind of like, what? And then one day my mom, it's so funny because I think part of her was frustrated that I was leaving, and the other part of her was frustrated that I thought it was crazy. And I kept saying, like, I was just struggling, and I just kept saying, you know, this is so crazy, this is so crazy. And she was just like, if you knew everybody was okay with it, would you still think it was this crazy?
Mm, mm, mm.
And I was just like, no. And so I literally, like, and one day I remember Vernon, I think it was that September, he was just like, I just want you to give yourself permission to be happy. Um, because there was so much good that I could see coming from it, but I couldn't give myself permission to it, to really lean into that, because I was struggling.
I
And
want to, I want to, I want to pause there because I think that that is a big point to highlight for people watching is that there is a difference between being obedient and your posture within your obedience.
yeah,
There
yeah.
is a big difference. I tell people all the time when we're serving business owners or leaders or whoever you're serving. I work for a very large church. I love my leader. Me and my leader talk about this all the time. And my leader is also one of my friends.
Mm-hmm,
One of my leaders is also one of my friends. And I tell
mm-hmm,
people all the time that we can argue like cats and dogs about a thing. We
mm-hmm,
can shut the door of that office and we can go at it. I can say, I don't like this. I hate this. I don't agree with you. I don't like what you're saying. He can say, I don't agree with you. We will argue like cats and dogs. But
mm-hmm,
because he is the leader that I am serving, when
mm-hmm.
we leave throughout that door, I don't get the right to be obedience, but out of proper posturing.
That there.
We love doing that. Okay,
Mm-hmm,
I'm going to listen to you, but I'm going to run my mouth behind your back while I'm out. I'm going to do it with a sneer on my face. I'm going to
mm-hmm,
do it with an attitude. I'm going to do it lacklusterly because I don't really want to do it. I'm going to find some way to inject negativity into
mm-hmm.
what you have asked me to do because I don't want to do it. That is
Yeah.
different than walking out in obedience in the proper posture. Obedience in the proper posture means once I leave that office and that space, that means no one else outside of my leader even needs to know that I disagreed.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the people, and we don't understand that people don't want to follow us and we can't be proper leaders ourselves because of how we've treated the people that have led us. You
It's so in everything.
there's this expectation that I get to do whatever I want to do when I leave this space in whatever attitude I want to do it because I don't like what you said. When proper posturing is I do it because you asked me to do it and I do it like I'm the one that said it's going to get done
Period.
with a smile on my face. Like that's and I think that relates to your bosses. What you were saying, I want to make sure I got disconnected for a second. I want to stop. If God asks me to do something and I go about doing it for a prolonged period of time, injecting my rejection of what he asked me to do,
Mm-hmm.
then I've tainted what he entrusted me to handle.
Period. Yeah.
He entrusted me to handle that. He entrusted me that I would put his will above my own and that I would not inject myself and
Mm-hmm.
my own opinions and viewpoints and negativity into what he entrusted me with.
Mm-hmm.
And then I turn around and I want to lead other people and I want other people to follow me and I want them to walk out the vision for their lives or for this business or for this company like I've asked them to. And I've proven that I don't have the proper posture to follow the people that I'm leading,
The
that are leading
thing,
me.
the thing about it though, Derek, is sometimes God literally won't even send you the people
Mm.
because he already know. Like, so you asked, like, what's a positive, and we both will tell you, and we joke about this. Our first year with me was hard. Like, it was hard. So it wasn't like I got there and it was just like it was hard, but I knew I was where God had asked me to be. I knew there were places that I needed to grow. I knew that we had something that was necessary for each other. And it got to the point where, like, some days I would say, I, as much as I want to quit, or I want to leave, or I want to go back, or this, that, and the third, I'm not leaving until I see what God said. right?
Yee.
Like, if what he told me was supposed to happen by me being here hasn't happened yet, then I should not leave, even though it's hard. But from that has created the most, like, I would not have known how much fruit I was going to get
Yeah,
from
that's good, Sean.
relationships to business to just I learned what it meant to be a pastor. I didn't know that before. The relationship that I have with my leaders is absolutely beautiful. Building that trust that you talk about, that's literally only built through obedience and hard work, and sometimes getting dirty, and sometimes it being messy, and sometimes you cry,
Yeah.
and this, that, and the third. But because I know for sure that the people that God have sent to me to help push my vision, they literally served me the way that I served Vernon. Like
You ain't lying.
from even before I got to the church, from our entire relationship over the past 7 years, the way that I dedicated myself to serving him, and to growing and gleaning, are literally the people that God sends me to push my
Mm.
vision.
I'm
I
gonna put
was
a I'm gonna put a strong word in there because I think this is the word that people shy away from. They don't just serve you like they serve Vernon. They obey you like you obey Vernon. That's what this is. And
Mhm.
this is the words, this is the words, because we're talking about men and women, that we want to shy away from and makes people cringe.
Mhm.
But that is what you're saying. We hide obedience under this word serving as if
Mhm.
obedience is not what's happening. That is
Mhm.
what's happening.
Mhm.
There was a series of instructions that you were called to obey.
Mhm.
And so now there are people that are following you that you are asking to obey things that you have laid out.
Mhm.
And the way they obey you is a direct reflection of the way you have obeyed Vernon, which I'm
Mhm.
sure in some way is a direct reflection of the way Vernon has obeyed God.
Absolute,
It,
without
it's
question. Without
it's
question.
completely down those tiers. So
Mhm.
I think we've talked about a bit about the perspective of being the one that is listening to the obedience and receiving the obedience. But I want to also flip it to the other side, because you are a business owner, you are a person who has people leading you, and talk about a little bit to me about what it feels like as a leader having to ask other people to obey you. And what do you see as a leader in that situation? Like, what are the good things? What are the bad things? What you got?
Okay, so I would say it's twofold. One, I thank God for good leadership. I thank God for the leadership that I grew up under my granddad, and I thank God so much for Vernon. A lot of the way that I attempt or try to lead is a reflection of what he poured into me, and the way that he led me. So a lot of what I do, a lot of my style of leadership, is very similar. He's someone who pulls gifts out of people, and he's a mentor, and so I try to make sure that I give that to the people that God has sent me, and with that, I think it's twofold. I understand that me asking people to do certain things or asking people to obey me, um, doesn't have anything to do with me. Um,
Mm,
and I think this is even where you get into trusting someone's vision.
hmm
So when I ask my admin, or I ask my creative director, whoever is working with me, or I ask an intern, to do something, I'm not asking for the sake of my ego, or I'm not asking from this space of, because I'm coming from a position of authority, you have to do what it is that I've said. I'm asking them to do something because I know that God has given me a vision, and this is what the vision requires.
Yeah.
And so this idea of being in leadership and being in the same position that I'm in other spaces,
hmm
it literally goes back to feeding and building the vision.
Mm-hmm.
Has nothing to do with me. And so I also realized that delegation sometimes is very hard for me, to be transparent. It's sometimes really hard for me, because I just know that I can get it done, right? But one thing that I'm learning and understanding is when we don't place people in positions to be obedient the way that God has asked them to, we stunt their growth.
Mm.
We stunt our growth. And nothing can really blossom and bloom from that space. And I also understand that when I have an issue with delegation, it also goes back to maybe a space of insecurity or lack of trust in me for the vision that God placed inside of me.
Right, right.
So like this idea of exerting authority or asking people to obey, again, it always has this negative connotation, when really you giving people instruction is literally you laid it out. It's God giving you instruction and then you
Yep.
transmitting that instruction to someone else.
But I think the proof of that, and this is a moment for anybody watching, that we're not going to prolong too long. So if you have any questions dealing with obedience, if you're struggling with serving somebody in a certain way or any questions like that, go ahead and drop it in the comments now, and we'll go ahead and begin to answer some of those. But I think it's important to realize that a lot of what you just said has to do with looking at the fruit of the one you are obeying.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is what we don't do sometimes. We talk about it and laugh at it all the time. Um, and let me make one thing clear before I say this point. No one's asking you to do anything immoral. No one's
Right.
asking you to do, if they're asking you to do something outside of what you know is the morality of God for your life, nobody is saying do that.
Yeah.
That you not have enough sense not to do that. But if it's
Mm-hmm.
something that you just don't want to do or you don't agree with or it makes you uncomfortable, that is outside of that moral, you have to look at the fruit of the one that is asking you to obey. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that goes from top to the bottom. Okay, it's easy to say God's fruit for a Christian. We
Mm-hmm.
look at the fruit of God and we know that God's fruit in our lives says, if God tells me to do this, I'm supposed to do that. That's something we preach all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes we don't look at the pastor or the boss or the CEO. I worked for a I worked for Geico. Geico has billions of assets, money, blah, blah, blah. And Berkshire Hathaway is the owner of all the other stuff. And Warren Buffett is big, blah, blah, blah. And I think I look at people and I say, don't try, we don't treat our pastors the way we treat still here. Hello? Yeah. Hey, I want to keep going. I want to pause for a
Okay,
second
you're back.
just to make sure we're good. Let me move closer to my router. Looks like something has gone down. Hello?
Yep, I can hear you.
Hey, Lauren,
Yep, I can hear you. Mm-hmm.
you there? Okay, cool. I moved to position because it was acting crazy for a second and I don't want to lose what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
I was saying that we have to focus on the vision, the fruit of it's easy to say, look at God and look what God is saying and look what God has done and to follow what God is saying because we've seen his fruit. But I don't think that we equate these business owners and billionaires and people we see. If Oprah told us to do something, we would be jumping head over
Mm-hmm.
heels because in our minds, Oprah has secured fruit in a way that allows us to feel like we can
For
obey
sure.
her. We would want to listen to her. But we don't often give that same respect to our pastors and people over our spiritual
Mm-hmm.
lives. There has to be a level of joy in that person, a level of peace of that person, a level of wisdom in that person that cause you to want to make that person your pastor or your leader
Mm-hmm.
and to follow them in the first place. So why don't we take that same level of fruit inspection to them
Mm-hmm.
to understand that they have a level of fruit that is dictating that I probably should listen to what they're saying right
Exactly.
now. And that fruit may not look like the tangible fruit of what we're talking about. Do they have a peace that you don't understand
Yep.
and that you don't see? Are
Mm-hmm.
they walking in joy in a way that you don't understand? Are
Mm-hmm.
they walking in wisdom in a way you don't understand? And I want to obtain that wisdom, that joy, and that peace. And I have to obtain that through my obedience. And they
Yeah.
have the fruit.
Exactly.
They have the fruit of what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And we often put it in a petty way, but we say it all the time. Like, if I'm a NASCAR driver and
Mm-hmm.
I want to be a NASCAR driver, and the top NASCAR driver tells me what to do, I would be a fool to look at them in their face and tell them that I don't want to do what they're telling me to do because it makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
This is this is what you
Then you don't want to be a NASCAR driver.
then you don't want to be a NASCAR driver. You,
Exactly.
you don't want to be a NASCAR. If I want to have joy and peace, and I look at the Word of God and it tells me do these things to do it, and I don't want to do it because it makes me uncomfortable. It's more comfortable for me to cuss her out.
Mm-hmm.
It's more comfortable for me to not apologize.
Mm-hmm.
It's more comfortable for me to sit higher than I actually am.
Mm-hmm.
Then I don't really want that.
Yeah.
That is why the Bible says we just backdoored away into saying that is why the Bible says, if you love me,
Keep
obey
my
my
commandments.
commandments.
Yep.
That's literally what that means. If
Mm-hmm.
I love God, which means I want to be more like God, which means I want
Mm-hmm.
to follow God, that means I obey his commandments.
Yeah.
If I want to learn how to do hair and I want to be a hairstylist and I love being a hairstylist and I want to be a better hairstylist and I'm going to school to be a hairstylist, then being a hairstylist means obeying the hairstylist commandments.
Mm-hmm.
That's
It's so
or you
simple.
or you're burning somebody's hair off and they're going bald.
Yeah, it's so simple. Even if you don't like it, and I will also say that if you're in a space where you're being asked to be obedient and you cannot see the, I think sometimes, so you talk about like this idea of hidden fruit or fruit that
Ooh,
you can't see
that's
right
good.
away. um I feel this way a lot when we pray. A lot of times we pray and we ask God to show us things or to say certain things, and we already have in the back of our mind what we want him to show us or what we want him to say.
Yeah.
And a lot of times us being disgruntled in a space of obedience, or bitter or frustrated, and not to say that God cannot handle our emotions, right? But
Hmm.
us being frustrated and bitter often creates blinders. And
Hmm.
so where God could show you fruit, or could show you where you're going, or could show you why you're in a place, a lot of times he can't, because our frustration or what we really desire or what we don't understand creates blinders that keep us from seeing. And it's like, if we would ever get to a space where we would say, before I even submit to a man, right? Before I ever submit to a man or woman of leadership, my first obedience is not even to that leader. My first obedience is to God.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and God is using this leader or this person as a conduit of obedience. And so if my first submission is to God, then I have a responsibility to submit my frustrations and submit my disappointments or what I don't understand to the altar so that he can clearly show me where I'm supposed to be and why,
I
and
want
how
to
I'm
jump in
supposed to
there
operate.
because I think that's a good way to uproot some things that may be sitting inside of people that are watching. We don't realize that our lack of obedience and our bitterness towards that obedience is rooted in pride.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that people often think of pride. People who serve often carry pride around without realizing that they're carrying pride because they serve well
Okay,
or
I'm
because
so
they
glad you
serve
said that. I'm so glad you
because
said that.
they because they serve. Just because you serve and you serve a lot of people doesn't mean that you don't walk in pride.
It's so true.
It is a very real thing that some of the most prominent people who serve, who have all these positions, are walking in a heavy pride that they don't want to acknowledge. Because
Yeah.
we look at pride as this big beast of monster that
Mm-hmm.
me and my leader were just talking about this. We look at pride as this beast and monster that comes in and oh, I'm trying to be the front of the show and I'm trying to be all of that. Ain't all
It's
that pride is.
it's real subtle.
Pride is real subtle, and you
Mm-hmm.
don't realize that that subtle pride in you, because pride by definition thinks that you deserve more than what you got.
That's so true. And for
Pr-
some reason, we attach that to service. I'm so glad you said that because I thought about this earlier. This idea, when you talk about the difference between obedience and service, when you're walking in obedience, you can't use the word I.
yeah,
Like when you're talking about service, you can say I serve,
yeah,
right? And serve has become such this idea of service has become such a buzzword that its definition has been towards it. Like
yeah,
it's literally but like I get to serve here, or I serve this, or I do
yeah.
that, and it becomes just this resume of I versus the focus on submission that obedience has.
hmm
It's completely different.
because private obedience is going to far outweigh your public serving.
Absolutely.
People focus on these biblical positions, or I'm the vice president of this company, or I lead this nonprofit, and we think that the public service is what's going to give us the access to God's promises for our lives. And it's not the public service that's going to give you any access. It's the private obedience that's
Mm-hmm.
going to give you access to what God has for your life.
Mm-hmm.
Because you think, Sabrina Evans just said it, we have this pride where we think we are entitled to something because we serve.
Yes. Like there's a
That is
transaction.
that isn't proper servitude.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us good leaders won't admit it, but it's in there. So go ahead. If you got it, let's go ahead and uproot it right now. If you're at home watching by
Mm-hmm.
yourself, go ahead and just acknowledge it right now and say, hey, I may not want to say it, but I got some pride that I got to deal with on the inside of me.
It's true.
Because we think that that serving piece is what gives us oblivious to pride, or that means that we're entitled to something. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
because I serve my pastor, I'm entitled to have him do this thing for me, or I'm entitled to have, or that means my relationship with him is elevated above everybody else's, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
entitled to have this, or he's
Mm-hmm.
entitled to do this for me, or because he's entitled. Ooh, here's a big one for people who
Mm-hmm.
serve in obedience, or he's entitled to promote me in some way.
Yeah. And
Woo!
it's not the case. The
and
vision is not about you.
and
It's
the
not
promote
about
me the promote me can be promote me internally, or promote, oh, I served you, so that means I have a new t-shirt line, so that means my pastor should sell the t-shirt line to everybody in the church. that that
if he
that
feels led to, just say
if
thank
he
you. You
if
don't
he feels led to, wonderful. But just
nobody
because you
owes you.
produce or you serve, that doesn't mean you're entitled to everything. But flipping that on its head, your obedience does entitle you to some things in God. And that's what people
That's
don't
the
understand.
that's the kicker, Derek, because we
You're
were never
obedient.
obedient, but we were never obeying humans.
Right. You were
So
never obeying it for your
so we
pastor.
shouldn't be looking for fruit from there. Like if
Yeah,
God
you can,
uses that as an avenue, then sure.
but you can make a demand on God. I
Yes.
can I can pray to God and say, oh, God, I obeyed you. So I know and I believe that I will see the fruit of my obedience.
Mm-hmm.
God, I obeyed you. And so I know you said that I would have peace that surpasses all understanding because
Mm-hmm.
I leaned on you and I obeyed what you said. That
Mm-hmm.
is that is what I'm entitled to.
Mm-hmm.
God, you said the joy of the Lord would be my strength and that you would strengthen me in this walk. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm entitled to. I'm entitled to the joy that you have for me because I
Absolutely.
obeyed with you. God, you said that I would be above and not beneath. I would be the
Mm-hmm.
lender and not the borrower. I was a peculiar, that you said those things. And because I've obeyed you and listened to you and heeded your voice, I can make it a demand. I am entitled to that.
Mm-hmm.
As a
Absolutely.
Christian, I'm entitled to the things of God, which may not appear the way you think that they will appear.
It might not be Instagrammable.
It it may not be Instagrammable. It may not be a picture on a wall. It
Mm-hmm.
may not. You may not reap it in the season that you're in right now.
Mm-hmm.
How
That is
how
so
many
good.
how many times have I sowed obedience in a prior season that I've reaped in this season? when it was
Absolutely.
my turn to ask people to submit to the authority that I had.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
When
And
I'm
so it goes back to trust. I have to trust that God is going to give me the fruit that is needed in its season.
Yes, ma'am.
I have to trust. Going back to my example for TLC, the fruit that I have gotten from that yes is something I've been there now since December 2016. It has not run out, and I still have not even seen the fullness of what we talked about in that conversation. Like that hasn't happened yet.
Mm,
But the fruit that has happened in the years since then, stuff that God, what's so funny is if the fruit that I've gained from that yes so far could be listed, um I might not have had such a hard time saying yes.
mm,
Which
yeah.
shows that a lot of times what God is looking for is our trust.
Mm.
A lot of times what
Again,
he's really looking for is our trust.
you guys, we're going to keep almost wrap up in a little bit. If you have any questions, if you don't, it's fine. But if you have any questions or comments or anything you just want to throw out there that's sitting on your heart, or you want to ask about, this is the time to do it. So we can go ahead and cover that before we hop off this live. But yeah, I think I'm not going to go into the full story, Lauren, but y'all don't know, me and Lauren have talked a little bit. But every time I talk to Lauren, I realize so much of our story is similar that it confuses me in a way that I'm like,
Like, was that me or was that you?
because I literally went through the same process. Some people I've told testimonies on Facebook before, but literally the job I'm in now is because God told me to move away from an area that I loved living in. He told me to come back to a church that I did not think that I wanted to come back to at the time. There were so many yeses that he required for me to get where I am now. And I think that people are fighting. It's what we talk about when we say the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step.
Yeah. Yep.
We see this thing that we want to get to in our minds. So many of the people watching have journals and plans and books and things that we see in our minds for 20 years down the line, which is great. God has blessed those things. He gives us insights to those things so that we know what we're heading towards and that we have direction and we have a purpose. But we often forget that all of that has to be dialed back to tomorrow.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we don't understand how the yes in tomorrow ties to the platform or the vision or the purpose fulfilled in the future.
Yeah.
So that's a challenge for people watching, because I think if someone asks you to obey God, your CEO, a business owner, I think that you have to have enough wisdom and sense to arrest yourself. Sometimes I say it out loud because the Bible talks about speaking. Sometimes something will hit me that I don't want to do, and I literally have to speak out loud and say, no, what we're not going to do is dismiss this moment. You're going to sit here and and I'll tell the person, give me one moment. And if I got to go, nope, you're going to sit here and you're going to listen to this. And because you're going to have to arrest yourself.
Absolutely.
We can't let our emotions take control. We can't let our flesh take control of the moment and disqualify us from the future, because it's much harder to come back and say yes once you've soiled on the situation.
Exactly.
It's sometimes we want to come back and we want to say yes later, and it's too late. In the moment, we didn't have enough sense to arrest ourselves, and now we've disqualified ourselves from whatever we're talking about.
It's so
And so
true.
we have to have enough sense to arrest ourselves and say, okay, is this yes now tied to what God has for me in the future?
Exactly.
If this yes is making me uncomfortable, what inside of me needs to be dealt with? Stop making it about the person that gave the authority or gave the instruction, and start asking yourself, what is it inside of me that needs to be dealt with that's repelling the instruction they gave?
Exactly. And it goes back to Ephesians 4:12. And we love to quote that, right? About the idea of casting down imaginations and every thought that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. I don't know why, like a lot of times we specifically associate that to things that look like blatant attacks of the enemy.
Yeah.
But sometimes the things that acknowledge themselves against the thoughts of God or our imagination, are our insecurities, our doubts, are the things that we don't know that we've allowed to be so loud, against a God thought. So like that idea of saying yes to something, it may be uncomfortable, but it could be a God thought.
Yeah.
And it's our imagination, and our thoughts that have risen up against God thoughts. So it's not always the
Yeah.
devil. A lot of times it's our thoughts that need to be, submitted under the power of Christ, so that his thoughts can be really made clear for us.
I think we have a question that I would love to allow you to answer. This question says, how do you handle a person who challenges your instruction?
Mm. Wow, that's a good question. And I think the answer may vary based on the context. But I was saying this. I think there's a couple of ways that you can handle that. One, I believe that conflict should be submitted under the Holy Spirit. I think he's a perfect person to ask first and foremost, so that you can be really clear whether or not the person who's challenging your instruction is someone, that just needs you to work with them, or someone who, is against your vision, shouldn't be there. So I
Right.
think
You have
that's
to know the
key.
difference.
Yes, I think that needs to be made very clear. And I think even in that, I think it is okay to tell someone who, um, if you've got a vision, that you know that you're supposed to be, whether it's in your business, whether it's ministry, whatever it is, and it's something that needs to be carried out, and someone is blatant on making sure that they do the opposite, whether or not they're supposed to be in your organization or not. I think that you have the authority and really the obligation, to sit that person down so that the vision can be,
Be
fulfilled. So
fulfilled.
whether that's moving them to a different space, whether it is, telling them like, I got it for a minute, whatever it is, I think that making sure that the vision comes to pass is important. And if you're able to pastor and discipline in that process, then I would do so.
I think my answer for that would be twofold. I think I would agree completely with what you just said. Um, if we're talking about a person that you've dealt with repeatedly, or in a way that you're just realizing that they're just not getting on board, that you're just going to have to reach the point that if they're not serving the vision that you have, that you're going to have to remove them. But if it's a person that's just starting, so you're just bringing someone on, or you're just being introduced to a person, we have to take a page out of God's book and understand how to love someone into submission.
That's good.
Submission, people who are not used to submitting in a certain way and obeying in a certain way. This is a big generational difference that we have, where we think that the answer means you obey me. We think picking up the belt and beating you into obedience is the way to do it, or and beating can be physical beating. Beating can be lashing you with punishments. Beating can be lashing you with insults or
Mhm,
berating you. And we
mhm,
take this route that beating people into submission is what causes people to listen to us. But
mhm,
beating people into submission only feeds rebellion.
mhm,
Let me be very clear. That's why slavery I don't believe, was ever God's intent for people in life. It not
mhm,
being slave to one another, because
mhm.
beating people into submission only leads to a rebellion. We've
Yeah,
seen that.
yeah.
It produces the exact opposite option that you want. But
Mhm,
loving people into submission. So that means, okay, you don't want to understand, you don't want to listen to me. Instead of me saying, well, you better listen to me, having an understanding why. Why
Right.
don't you want to do what I've asked you to do? What inside of you do we need to talk about? Have you
Mhm.
considered that there is something in you that I ask people that all the time? I think about it. I work with my worship team, um, and it's a question I would ask. It comes up in the most simplest ways. We ask people to sit on the first 3 rows of rehearsal.
Mhm.
Hey, come in. We want you to sit as close up as possible on the first 3 rows. And we have people who refuse to do it,
Mhm.
who they don't want to be up close. Okay, cool. Loving you into submission says, okay, I may have to be stirred from time to time, but I also go back to that individual and say, okay, hey, so what reason do you not want to come up front? Oh,
That's
I don't
good.
like this. Oh, so there's a fear of your voice, or there's a
Mhm.
fear of other people. Have you considered that the people around you love you, and that we're all in this vision together, and that they want to sit next to you? Have you considered that your covenant connection for what you need in your life may be the person that's sitting next to you right now? And if you God may be asking you to obey me right now so that you'll sit on this 3rd row, so that you'll sit next to Kathy, and you and Kathy will start talking, and Kathy will have your answer for your vision and your purpose and your dream. And I think that is what, when you decide to go further than just I demand, and you decide to really care about people and love on people, then you will love people into a place of being willing to submit to you. Being being willing. Something started buzzing. But do you hear that buzzing? No. Oh, there it is. Hello? So I think overall, I think you can hear me. Lauren, if you can hear me, let me know. I think
Yeah.
overall, yeah,
Yes, it
something
does.
started acting choppy, but it's okay. Overall, if you can hear me, this has been a fantastic conversation. If you all have, thank you, Rhonda. Thank you so much. If you all have any other questions or concerns, you can DM me, both me and Lauren. Lauren's information is on my Facebook. Her Instagram is on there. And Lauren, I think I may want a part 2 this. So we'll see.
That would be good.
I think I may want a part 2 this. If y'all would want a part 2 of this, y'all let me know. Put it in the comments and let us know, because I think that um, there is so much of your story that is similar to mine, that I really want us to begin to delve into what obedience looks like in real time. Just even the more. I think that could be extremely helpful. I think Lauren got disconnected, but it's fine. Um, I really want to delve into, for the future ones, what obedience would look like in real time. And so some of us need help in that area, and that's okay. You may be a person that needs somebody to walk you through this in a way that will revolutionize your mind. And I'm here to do that. If you need to message me or call me, let me know. But it is my endeavor to encourage the people of God to be able to function in the things of God in excellence here and all over the world. Okay. We love you guys. We care much about you. Shout out to Lauren White. She'll be back. We are going to restream this tonight at 7 p.m. I think it's like either 7 or 8. We're going to restream it tonight. If you pay attention to my Instagram, please let people know that it's coming up. I think Lauren is coming back. Let's see. If she may have a couple closing thoughts, but if anybody has anything else, just let us know. We love you guys. Lauren, there you are. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear
Yeah,
you.
there we go. So I was just giving final thoughts, and this is a good moment. If you have any final thoughts, let us know, and then we'll close. We'll go ahead and close out.
Well, I hope that this conversation definitely was helpful to you guys. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. But I really hope that, especially in this season where a lot of us are being asked to do things, um, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. A
But
lot
where
of we
people
being
are
asked
being
to do
asked to
things.
do things, even in this space, that are out of their job description. There's a lot of creatives that are being asked to do things
That's
um,
good.
asked to do things in this space where a lot of churches and a lot of businesses are just they're in a like all hands on deck.
Yeah.
And what was normal maybe a month or two ago is not normal now. And I have heard a lot of stories over the last few weeks where there's just been a lot of frustration in various ministries. So not necessarily talking about mine, but just hearing from peers and colleagues, just frustrations around, and more so frustrations from leaders, because the people that they're leading are not used to being in a space where they're being asked to do more
Yeah.
than what they before.
We joked
And
before.
so
We joked before that we're working almost harder now than we were before this pandemic.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, without question. And so I hope that something that we shared even gives purpose to those frustrations. We understand they're real, but we hope that a part of this conversation gives hope to that.
All right. Love you guys. Lauren, thank you so much, you guys. Again, this stream will be up so you can share it after we get off, but we're definitely going to restream it. And I think we're going to part two it because there's a few more things that I want to just delve into with you, Lauren, because I am
Oh,
so excited about this connection. And I will see you later. You have a great thing. And we love everybody on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook. And we'll see you guys later.
see you.